Hello and welcome. My name is Nick Koutsoukas and I'm the CMO at Catchpoint. I hope that you've all heard the news and seen the announcement we made on September the 16th. To remind our viewers, Catchpoint has joined forces with WebPageTest. And if you don't know what WebPageTest is, it's the industry's most popular and widely used open source web performance testing platform. So with me today, I have the pleasure to be joined by Mehdi Dowdy, the CEO and co-founder of Catchpoint, and Patrick Meenan, founder and creator of WebPageTest. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah,
Obviously,
thank you, Nick.
the two of you have been working on this deal for quite a while, and I'm sure that our viewers would love to hear directly from you the reasons behind this perhaps surprising but very interesting move. So I will start with you, Mehdi. Let me ask you a question. You founded Catchpoint 12 years ago. On September 15th will be our 12th birthday. I've joined the company about a year ago. So how long have you known Patrick and how long have you known of WebPageTest and the tool and the software?
So I've heard of Patrick and WebPageTest when I was still at DoubleClick, because we were signing this big deal with AOL, and we wanted to measure SLAs based on our tools, and they said no, we have this other tool that we use. And I looked at they gave us some numbers out of WebPage. Well, I think it was called Page Tester at the time or something like that. And so I've known of Patrick since then. And obviously in 2008, when we decided to leave Google and start Catchpoint, what happened is we went to Velocity. Druid, my other co-founder, we went to Velocity, and I met Patrick, I think, in person the first time there. And ever since, every Velocity conference, until recently when they stopped that event, I've met Patrick at every one of those conferences, a huge fan of his. And I believe I've mentioned to him 3-4 times over the past few years that maybe we should work together. And so for me, it's an unbelievable honor, because it's somebody that I respect a lot in the industry, and somebody that has a very strong feeling about performance and about also the measurement and the data quality. So those are things that I've always valued a lot. And so that's the little story between me and WebPageTest and Patrick over the years.
Great, thanks,
I mean,
Mehdi.
it's funny. I mean, going back, like Mehdi said, we've known each other almost as long as web performance has been like a popular thing, since 2008 and Velocity got started. But I still remember like some of our first conversations where we were talking about how we deploy test agents and the remote management and the Intel NUCs and sort of what our favorite hardware was, and comparing notes and sort of geeking out on all of that kind of stuff. And it was really cool because we had, like Mehdi said, we have very similar real browsers, real devices, real locations. We had both been through sort of the fires and burned with a lot of monitoring that existed at the time, which was being gamed, if you would, running from data centers right next to the edges, and it wasn't representative of the end user experience. And so we had very similar visions throughout the years even, and it's been great to watch Catchpoint growing over the years.
So Patrick, tell us a little bit about your journey with WebPageTest.org, and when did you start, and also how are people using it today? And I know you and I talked about it. You know, you get thousands of users clicking and using it every a month. So just tell us a little bit about the beginning and how you got to this point.
Sure. I mean, like Mehdi mentioned, WebPageTest was originally AOL Page Test, which was a browser plugin for Internet Explorer, which was baked into the AOL client of the days, and way back then was the most popular browser. Originally created it because most of our devs were using Firefox because it had the dev tools of the day. It was the only one that had sort of the dev tools and the waterfall and things like that. And so we wanted an equivalent for IE because all of our users were actually using IE. And our devs were our data center was literally across the street from our office. And so our users are all on dial-up connections. Maybe cable was starting to become a thing. But the devs were all on 100 megabit connection with like 2 milliseconds latency to the data center across the street. And it's always the typical, it's fast for me, what are you talking about? So it was originally built to demonstrate to the dev teams what the actual user experience was like in Internet Explorer on a slow connection. And we saw enough value in it. Firebug existed at the time, why slow was a thing. And we thought it would be valuable to the industry to put it out there as an open source project for others to consume. And then on the side, I took it out and put a web UI on the front of it and hosted it in my basement as WebPageTest. Actually, I think it was pagetest.patrickmeenan.com:8080 or something like that, because it was running off of a home internet connection when I first launched it. The internet connection's gotten better over the years, but it is still running out of my basement. And so over the years, I can't remember the exact company, but like a few months after we launched it, there was a company in New Zealand that was doing accelerator services and stuff. And they're like, you know what, it's great. You have test locations in Dulles, Virginia, which is where my house is, which is why that's the main test location in my basement. And they were like, you know, can we contribute some edge nodes in New Zealand to get you a view from our side of the world to show our users what the experience is like? We really like the tool, but it's not terribly useful that you're testing in only Virginia. And so that's sort of the start of the community contributed nodes that ended up forming the global map that WebPageTest has right now. And yeah, so the usage has just grown over the years as I've, and when I was at Google, we did a whole bunch of work on adding more browser support. And so Chrome and Firefox and mobile devices. And so the capabilities have grown over the years, and the usage, the community has been really great, providing feedback, requesting features. I tend to try to be as responsive as possible on adding stuff. And so it'll be one of those things that usually release on a Friday for some reason, but Friday night tweet out, hey, try this new thing. And yeah, so the usage has just grown incredibly. And people started building tools around it. So it has an API that you can call and integrate with. And so the UI uses the API. So everything you can do through the tool, you can also automate. And so people started building cool or hacking cool tools together. There was a command line interface. Andy Davies put together a spreadsheet in Google Sheets that will call the API and run a whole bunch of tests and collect your results together. And so the tooling also started to build around it. And I started getting a lot of requests for API keys. And it's like, all right, I mean, it's meant to be mostly a manual tool that people use, but I handed out some API keys sort of under the covers. And then I set up a system where people could request limited API keys because I didn't have the capacity or the desire to build this huge monitoring system running out of my basement, right? And so if it goes down at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night, it goes down. I'm not going to look at it until I wake up in the morning. And so it's sort of grown from there, where people got to the point where they were like, can I just pay you money to have an API key that does a whole lot more testing? And it's always been, the answer has always been, I'm sorry, you'll have to run a private instance. So you'll have to stand up your own infrastructure. It's all open source, but now you're having to manage a monitoring system, whether it's in the cloud or wherever else. And a lot of people have done that, but it's not sort of something they want to do. It's not part of their core business. And so, excuse me, we finally got to the point where got to talking with Mehdi, and it's like, you know what? We've both had such a similar vision for so many years. Why don't we take and actually do something where we can offload that responsibility from teams, and we can offer API keys that you can actually run tens of millions of tests against if you want to, and we can have SLAs and we can have ops teams running it, and it's not running out of my basement on my internet connection. And so it was just great timing. We had a great conversation, and we just sort of took it from there.
Sounds great. And so what, up until this point, Patrick, what are the typical use cases for WebPageTest.org? What do people do? You mentioned some of these things. Just
I
mention
mean,
maybe
there's a
more.
huge range of what people use it for. The most common case is you're working on web performance for a site. So I like to think of it as a hosted version of DevTools, so Chrome's DevTools, or even Firefox's DevTools, where you'll run a test and you'll want to see the performance of a page loading, but also why it took so long to load or why it was fast, the sequence that things loaded in. And so the visual film strip, the experience is all part of what makes WebPageTest what it is, to try and demonstrate what the actual user experience would be while it was loading, and to give you the technical details to figure out why, all the way down to like TCP dump captures if you want to figure out like the TCP slow start configuration on your server. You want to get really into the bolts, but even just to a high level, like we're making this third-party call to a tag manager before we render the page and things like that. And so a lot of people will use it as part of their dev or optimization cycle to work on performance or to investigate performance. It's also fairly effective at encouraging people to work on performance when you do a competitive analysis. And you can like test my website and my competitor's website or a few competitors' websites, put them in a side-by-side video and show it off to the execs. And usually if you end up being the slower one, or it takes twice as long to render anything on the content, you get budget to work on performance all of a sudden. And so it's pretty effective at doing that. And like I said, since people have built tooling around the API, you get all sorts of things like bulk testing a bunch of sites to see which are the ones that I should go focus on, or what should I go look at. Some people have built WordPress plugins that will automatically monitor your performance over time. For really small shops who aren't going to be building out their own monitoring infrastructure and things like that. And so just sort of a low-key performance trending and things like that.
You know, ultimately, performance was, or performance monitoring and monitoring in general was only reserved to a very few companies back in the days. And because it was very expensive. I mean, I remember when I was at DoubleClick, I was spending $2.5 million a year on Gomez and Keynote. There were only a few companies. There were Zaywell, the Lycos of the world, the Microsoft of the world, and whatnot. And what WebPageTest has done is literally democratized performance and allowed the common company with even a team of 1 or 5 or 10 developers to start taking performance in a very, very serious way. And so I really give kudos to WebPageTest for having brought the concept of performance to inside a dev or a DevOps shop, and also highlighted the fact that performance is not an afterthought. See, Catchpoint, for example, is used a lot in production environments. So after the things are released and you want to look at the network, the web page performance and all that good stuff. But in my opinion, that's a little bit too late. And so WebPageTest has always been good at enabling and empowering teams to look at performance very early in the cycle where performance should be looked at. When you're monitoring performance after the fact, when it's released to production, it's too late. So the impact that WebPageTest has had all these years is really, it's amazing, number one, but it's really bringing that concept of performance culture to the masses.
And it gets into sort of the difference between operational monitoring, where historically, like the ops teams and the SRE teams have had monitoring of the infrastructure that they control, to know when like a server is having problems or a network is having problems or a load balancer is having problems, and less about the full product integration. If your ad server from this third-party company is having issues, the ops team doesn't care, right? The product team, well, they might care because that pays their bills, but the product team, the dev teams, the ones that actually build the full product care about that. And so that's part of the difference of the sort of the monitoring that we've traditionally done, and like going back to the Keynote and Gomez days of literally monitoring servers with HTTP pings and things like that, to looking at the full product experience and the user experience. And they blend together a lot these days.
Right. Yeah, we've been hearing about this need to pay attention earlier in the process, for even from ops teams. You mentioned SREs. About 2 months ago, we did our annual SRE survey, and one of the biggest complaints that they have, one of the sore points, if you like, is that they wish that they can get involved a lot earlier in the process, the development process even, as opposed to just be handed over something that they have to monitor sort of in production. So you guys have known each other for a while. You've been talking for a while. Uh, why did this thing come together now? What is it that is happening around the world? Anything that you've been hearing from your users, Patrick, and from our customers, Mehdi, that sort of brought the whole thing together? I'll start with you, Patrick.
I mean, from my perspective, it's just sort of good timing, and things have just sort of escalated to the point where it makes sense, right? Like I mentioned, people have increasingly been asking me for a way to do monitoring, for a way to do API keys at volume, for like a more reliable version of WebPageTest. And
Right.
as a side project and something I'm running out of my basement, not something I was willing to sign up for. And so we had the conversations, and it just worked out that it's a good time to actually do this and to actually be able to provide that for people who don't want to stand up their own infrastructure.
Sounds good. Mehdi, any comments from you?
No, I mean, you know, I've always known that that Patrick and I will work together, to be honest. Uh, just because he never said no to me over all these years, but it was always, it's not a good time. So, and, you know, I think we had the conversation this past February briefly about it, just before COVID-19. And I got really excited, but again, it wasn't the right time. And then a few months ago, we re-engaged, and what I love about Patrick is, and this is something I got to learn over the past few months working on making this a reality, is like he has a huge entrepreneurship background. He just doesn't know it very well. But what I'm hoping to be able to give Patrick is a platform for in which he can do it. And again, I'm a huge fan of WebPageTest. Actually, I host the Los Angeles WebPageTest. I've been doing that for many years, and I've seen the changes, obviously, that WebPageTest has gone through. So I am personally a huge fan of the tool, of the product itself, and obviously of its creator. And I just want to make sure that WebPage is super successful. And some people might think, well, hold on, Catchpoint, WebPageTest, aren't they competing or any of that stuff? And it's not. It's actually very complementary because, again, the vision, and we share that a lot, Patrick and I, is we want to make the web better. We want to make the internet better for everybody. And so you can tackle it from different angles, from a monitoring standpoint, which is like, hey, can I reach your website? Is your website or application available, reachable? Is it performing? Is it reliable? All that good stuff. But that's post-production. The question is, how can we move the needle to the left and focus on performance and monitoring and make this part of a culture? And so I think the two together, with what we've learned over the last 12 years at running at scale a fairly big infrastructure. We have about 8,000 servers today around the world. We operate in one of the best data centers in the US in NAP 7 in Las Vegas. We just hired the VP of operations from Google for tech ops. And so we've learned how to scale and to do this in a very economic way as well. And so what we want is like, how can we give and how can we enable all of our learning and all of our capabilities and capacity for WebPageTest to flourish, and again, to help the dev and the DevOps communities deliver better product before production.
Right. So that's a good segue to my next question, Mehdi. We've been sharing vision. We've been talking internally about some of our short and longer term plans. I would like to ask you to give our viewers just a sense of what are the things that we're going to be doing over the next couple of months. What are the first steps, and then a little bit about the further vision. I'll ask you first, and Patrick, then
Sure.
you can chime in.
So I will start by telling you what we're never going to do. I think that's a much better way. So we're never going to change webpagetest.org. Webpagetest.org will always exist, will always be available for free for people to use. Uh, I think that's an unbelievable gift to the world, and we're not going to change that. So that's what the first thing we're never going to do. Patrick and I and the rest of the Catchpoint team are still talking about all the things that we want, where we want to take web page test. The immediate thing is we're going to reinforce the infrastructure of web page test by launching a lot of web page test agents around the world, both on the cloud and then very shortly after on some of our other locations. And also migrating web page tests from Patrick's basement, so he can put a pool table or God knows what he's planning on doing there, and migrating web page test infrastructure from Pat's basement to NAP 7, and that will happen very shortly in the next few weeks. Hopefully, we are still working on the plan. There is a lot of data migrations, and we want to do it as well in a way that the community doesn't feel any disruption. Again, we're in the monitoring business, we're in the performance business. We want this to be seamless and without any interruptions. So, and then after that, it's going to be a lot of fun stuff that Patrick has a lot of ideas, and we're going to outfit him with resources, both on marketing and engineering, to continue to build the community and provide a lot of more services around the community. I've always been a huge fan of his teaching moments at Velocity around how to read a waterfall. I think a lot of people have learned how to read the waterfall just by listening to Patrick. And so it's really about how can we strengthen the community, and then obviously how do we develop the product and take web page test to the next levels.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Patrick,
I mean,
anything you want to add?
Mehdi took all my thunder. It's like,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
we're not gonna take anything away, but we are definitely moving it out of my basement.
Right.
And so if something goes down at 2 a.m., we've got an SRE team that's gonna to be watching it. It's gonna be more available. And I think probably the best way to put it is, if there's something you've ever wanted out of WebPageTest that I couldn't provide because it was running in my basement in my spare time, I think we're going to be in a position to be able to do that now. And I'm really excited about that, and to sort of enable the next wave of where performance tooling goes.
Fantastic. Thank you, gentlemen. Do you want to add anything else? I don't have any other questions.
No, again, you know, our promise is I'm dead serious on this. Nothing is going to change about web page test. I know it can feel a little bit awkward for a commercial company to take a product like this, but rest assured, and I don't think Patrick would have agreed to do what we did if there was a single ounce that I wasn't serious and I wasn't honest about this thing that we're not going to touch web page test, because then what's the point? So that's my promise to everybody listening, and my commitment that this is about making web page test better and making Catchpoint better. Because the other thing is we're going to learn so much from Patrick, how to build better products and better solutions for all of our customers. The amazing thing is when we started talking with Patrick a few months ago, we have so many common customers, so many common companies using both products for different reasons. And so the question is, how do we take this, as Patrick said, how do we make the tooling even better? And you know, the internet requires better user experiences. And so our job is to keep on innovating and making sure that that executives know about performance, SREs know about performance, DevOps know about performance, because it's everybody's problem. Nobody can say, I don't care. And I'm tired of walking into customer meetings where people tell me, oh, availability is all I care about. Well, guess what? Performance is an availability problem today in the world we live in. So I want to evangelize this performance concepts and cultures. I've been doing that for many, many years, even before Catchpoint. And so performance is a culture. And I really want people to absorb that. And there are free tools and there are commercial tools that will enable companies to reach those goals.
Excellent. Thank you, Mehdi. Patrick.
And I'm really excited. To see where we can take this. I also want to take a minute to just thank the community that built WebPageTest and that has taken it to where it is today. And I'm confident that they're going to be excited to see where we can take it, and they'll be excited to continue working with and integrating with the things we're building. We're happy to continue to engage with the community. That's one of my favorite things to do. The web performance community is such a great community to work with, and it's just an incredible opportunity to see, now that we'll actually have real engineering resources to help build things, to help push the platforms forward, browser support and all that kind of stuff. I'm really excited to see what we can do.
That's a very important point, Patrick, you made, which is, this doesn't mean that we don't want to hear from the community on how to build products or the features, right? So again, nothing changes. And even at Catchpoint, we've always been driven by customers. The first feature we added in Catchpoint was a suggestion box. Literally, that was the first feature where customers pushed for features because only them know the challenges they're facing and what they need to be solved. So again, we're going to rely on this community and we're going to protect this community and invest in it.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree, and I'm excited too. What has made this successful is the community itself, as you said, Patrick. So we want this community to continue thriving and growing. We're not here to take anything away. We're here to make it even flourish even more than it has. So, gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to have you on this video. I want to say from me to you, to both of you, congratulations on making this happen. For me, it's just a real pleasure, and I'm super excited to be part of it. I'm looking forward to continue working with both of you. Patrick, it's just a real honor to have you joining Catchpoint, and I'm looking forward to learn from you and work with you. So to our viewers, thank you very much for listening, and we are excited and can't wait to tell you more about the future plans. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Sponsored by Catchpoint, the leader in digital experience management.